Welcome back to Agency Accelerated, the show for agencies who want to grow and scale. Stick with us to learn how you can simplify your growth strategy with a solid takeaway every episode from agency owners and experts in the industry. I'm Mike Alton, Head of Strategic Partnerships at Agorpulse, and I'm here from the home office in St. Louis, Missouri. And listen, today we have an incredible show and a special guest for you. On August 25th, you've got the opportunity to attend Agency Summit and learn how to scale your marketing agency to new heights. You learn how to implement systems and processes that can be delegated, gain back precious hours from every day, and craft an achievable vision for the future of your agency, and so much more. From the dozens of amazing speakers and sessions we've got lined up to the panels, breakouts, and networking opportunities, we also have a few surprises in store for you. In fact, up until this moment, one of our keynote presenters has been a closely guarded state secret. COVID-19 sure created some constraints, didn't it? We've been constrained to our desks, our homes, our families, Zoom calls. For some, all these constraints severely affected our businesses. For others, the constraints became their fuel for growth. If the pandemic has taught us anything, it's that constraints breed creativity. Wouldn't you like to be able to strategically decide limitations to impose that would actually spark your business? Well, that's exactly what our opening keynote speaker at Agency Summit is going to help us understand and prepare our mindset for an entire day of learning and exploration. You ready to meet him? Andrew Davis is a best-selling author and internationally acclaimed keynote speaker. Before building and selling a thriving digital marketing agency, Andrew produced for NBC's Today Show, worked for the Muppets in New York, and wrote for Charles Corral. He's appeared in the New York Times, Forbes, the Wall Street Journal, and on NBC and the BBC. Davis has crafted documentary films and award-winning content for tiny startups and Fortune 500 brands, recognized as one of the industry's jaw-dropping marketing speakers. Andrew is a mainstay on global marketing influencer lists wherever he goes. Andrew Davis puts his infectious enthusiasm and magnetic speaking style to good use, teaching business leaders how to grow their businesses, transform their cities, and leave their legacy. And he's here with us today. Hey, Andrew, it is such a pleasure to see and speak with you.
Hey, Mike, that was awesome, man. I'm so excited about this summit. It's going to be amazing. So I see somebody on Facebook, they just commented, they said they're there. So I will see you there. I can't wait. It's going to be fantastic. I looked at the agenda. You got Robert Rose, you got Alex Dumas, you got Sarah Scott, Brooke Sellers, Chris Giles, you got Brian Kramer, you got Rachel Matisse, you got Stephanie Liu, who I know you know very well. It's going to be an amazing event. So I can't wait to be part of it. Thanks for inviting me.
Our pleasure. It is going to be amazing. For those of you watching live, drop in the comments. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Definitely let us know if you're going to be at Agency Summit on the 25th. I'll drop the link there in just a minute, but you can go to agorpulse.com/summit if you haven't yet RSVP'd. Make sure you do that. Now, Andrew, at Agency Summit, you're going to be delivering the opening keynote address titled The Cube of Creativity: Why Adding Constraints Sparks Innovation, Action, and Builds Businesses, which we will talk about in just a moment. But first,
Okay.
I want to know a little bit more about you and how you got into this business. I need to know, how did you go from Muppets to marketing?
Mike, it's a big of a leap. Here's the deal. There's one thing I learned working at the Jim Henson Company with the Muppets, and the truth is they create great content for sure, but that content doesn't make much money. Like, the truth is, Sesame Street doesn't make any money really. Working in the house, or the movies like Muppets from Space and Elmo and Grouchland, those movies don't make a ton of money. What really makes money is all the merchandising and licensing they do for the characters that they've created. And what I learned at the Jim Henson Company is that if you create content that your audience falls in love with, they will buy anything from you. I mean, no one needs a Big Bird plush doll until you fall in love with Big Bird, and now you need to buy one, right? And so, I was working there in the late 1990s. The Jim Henson Company was kind of struggling. I had a bunch of friends, and this is the startup boom of the late 90s. If you're not old enough to remember that, it was just like this explosion of new companies that were getting millions of dollars in funding for all sorts of new kind of businesses. And they were poaching people from television and producer from television to creating content on the internet, which was like an amazing new thing. So I had these friends who were getting jobs working in marketing. And I was like, what is marketing? What do you guys do? And they're like, I don't really know, but we just tell stories. And apparently we make like 4 times as much as you're making. I thought, well, if that's the deal, I'm in. So I left the Jim Henson Company. I got a job at a series of startups actually working in marketing. And within about 2 years, I realized, hey, you know what? I think I could tell great stories that inspire people to buy stuff. And I could do it for lots of clients. And I partnered up with one of my college friends, actually, and a television journalist that I knew named Jim Costco. And we started an agency called Tipping Point Labs and grew that. And to be totally honest, for all you agencies out there, I didn't know anything about running an agency, neither did Jim. All we knew is that if it's what we learned at the Jim Henson Company, if you can create content that inspires people to go on a journey they never expected, you can sell them whatever it is at the end of that rainbow. And so that's how we built the agency, and that was the leap. But truly, it's the same thing I learned in television.
That's amazing. And I can totally vouch for everything you just said from the perspective of you are a terrific storyteller. I've watched, so many of your loyalty loop videos, and I've always enjoyed the stories that you wrap into those, like the story you did about virtual events, and you start talking about Lumiere, and you brought this fantastic historical perspective on film. It was amazing.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. I do enjoy telling stories. And I mean, at the end of the day, I think if you can tell a great story, you can really capture and hold people's attention for as long as you want. So, as marketers, as agency owners, and agency creatives, really truly understanding how to keep a story, the mechanics of a story working, whether it's a TikTok post or it's a tweet. If you can invite your audience to keep chasing answers, you can earn more and more of their time. And that's what I found in television, and I tried to apply, from an agency side, but also from a marketing side.
Right. Absolutely. And so your keynote for Agency Summit, the Cube of Creativity, is what I'm really looking forward to. I mean, I first saw you speak Content Marketing World a few years ago, and you just blew me away with your ideas and your style. You had this big box on stage, and the curiosity gap, it was amazing. So I'd love for you to share with our audience today some of the key points, some of the takeaways that marketing agencies will learn from you at Agency Summit.
Yeah. Okay. So the cube of creativity is essentially 4 constraints, like this box that we're in on, the Facebook Live. It's 4 constraints you can add to any single project or initiative or client, request that will help you and your team come up with better, more creative solutions faster. And they all came out of interviews I did with business owners and business executives and teams, that, during the pandemic, because everybody in the world was faced with the exact same constraints during the pandemic, but some companies really took off and others barely survived. And I was trying to figure out what's the difference between those two. So let me give you just 2 things that I learned in creating really great, constraints for projects or initiatives, whether they're for you and your team or your clients, or your team and their clients. The first one is we need to eliminate the unnecessary. We need to be better, especially as marketers, at killing things that we shouldn't be continuing to do. So anytime you take on a new client project or you take on a new initiative or request from a client, we need to consider killing 2 things. Okay. So this is the real key takeaway. Kill one thing is usually the easy thing. It's like if you might say, hey, what should we kill before we start working on this new project for this client? And, maybe like Jeremy in your office raises his hand. He's like, hey, I think we should kill those Facebook Lives we've been doing. And like, yeah, it's a good idea. Jeremy, when's the last time we did a Facebook Live? And Jeremy's like, let me think, February of 2018, like that. No, you're not really doing that. So kill it, like free up your mind and get rid of that. And then the second one is kill the hard one. And that usually has some ego attached. Maybe it's something the client really was, big on 3 or 4 or 5 months ago that you haven't done anything with and they've moved on from. Or maybe it's something that you've already dedicated time and money and resources to, but maybe it's time you just axe that project. Or maybe, you've been posting on TikTok and it's just not working. Before you invest in your new Facebook campaign that your client wants to do, make a commitment to stop working on TikTok, at least put it on pause so that you can, actually do something else. And the second key thing I think that I can share with you before we get to Agency Summit on August 25th is that you need to really add unreasonable creative limitations for you and your team's projects. Okay. And the key word is unreasonable. I want you to think about having an unreasonable time constraint project. So let's say you want to, launch a new, I don't know, a new webinar series by, you're hoping a month from now. Well, instead of just saying, yeah, we have a month to launch this, add a constraint that is unreasonable. Like, hey, what if we launched a webinar series tomorrow? Now that's Mike, that sounds unreasonable, but that's the point. It sounds idiotic, but what will happen is your team will gel and work together in a way that you've never seen before. And yes, it may not be the webinar you imagined, but they'll get something off, and you can test things faster and actually see what works. And you'll actually get more creative solutions out of the team if you put unreasonable time limits and time expectations on the projects you're creating. So those are just two of the takeaways, but there are 4 constraints you have to add to every single project, and we'll go through those on the 25th with the cube of creativity.
That is amazing. I love it. And I'm totally digging and relating to your second point, that unreasonable, deadline, that unreasonable constraint. I was having a mastermind call with Stephanie Liu a couple months ago, and we were talking about these new initiatives I was doing on the side about virtual events. And she's like, why don't you start a podcast? And we were, the context was, we were talking about what can I do like in the next few days, right, to really, jumpstart this side business. And I was thinking, gosh, I can't start a podcast basically over the weekend, but then I figured out how to do it, and it came together. Yes. and it was pretty cool.
That's exactly the point. Look, like you, Mike, you're the perfect demonstration of exactly what I'm talking about. If you say, hey, let's start a podcast, it's very easy for people in general to all of a sudden go down the rabbit hole and say, like, what's the perfect gear and where am I going to host it and what kind of, and how long it should be, and listen to some podcasts, figure out what they do well. And like, before you know it, it's been 6 weeks, and yeah, you've learned a lot, and maybe you've got the gear setting right there on your desk and you're like, this looks great, but you've recorded and distributed nothing, right? Yeah. But when you put that unlimited, unreasonable, constraint on the project, and you say, you did exactly what I suggest people do in the Cube of Creativity. You put that unreasonable constraint on and you say, what if I launched a podcast by Monday? On Friday afternoon, you say that, you actually do it on Monday, you will find all the right ways to at least get something out there and start the ball rolling. And the good thing is you haven't invested thousands of dollars in gear that you maybe didn't need to just get it started. And I think that's exactly what I want people to think about. Like, yeah, unreasonable.
Yeah. And then, like you said, you get that ball rolling, because now for me, it's 2-3 months later, I'm now 12, 13 episodes in to a podcast. It exists. It's alive, right? Whereas, I could have spent that whole time perfecting the message and the graphics and blah, 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 and then had no content to show for it. So that's brilliant. I just have one final question, and that's, what's one really good foundational piece of advice that you'd like to impart on marketers and marketing agencies today?
It's very simple. Your creative fuel is finite, so burn it wisely. Say it again, I want you to really think about it. Your creative fuel is finite, so burn it wisely. I think one of the things we all hope is that our creativity is boundless. And if you're running an agency, you're trying to best clients and you're constantly challenged to be creative, you hope that your creative energy is limitless. But the truth is, it's not. And we need to be really careful where we expend that creative energy in any given day or week or month, because it's exhausting, and your inspiration and the creativity that comes out of the time and effort you spend isn't limitless. I'm hoping that you can start picking and choosing where you really use your creative fuel, and you just focus on ensuring that you've eliminated things that are getting in the way of that, or taking even small amounts of creative fuel away from your day, and then allows you to focus that creative energy where it's needed the most to come up with the best solution as rapidly as possible for clients, so that you can make the biggest impact. And having run an agency, I feel like, when you a full tank, let's say in the morning, and everybody's taking just a small drip of your creativity, with small requests and simple things and stuff that doesn't really matter, all of a sudden you find yourself with a big creative challenge and not a juice at the end. So protect your creative fuel. It's really what is going to make you successful and feel rewarded. So burn it wisely.
I love that. I've spent a lot of time this year studying NLP. I got my certification in NLP earlier this year, and one of the principles of NLP is that there's only so much that we can pay attention to. And we talk about how you can basically process 7 bits plus or minus 2, and that's about it out of all the bits of data and other things that are coming at us in the day. And what you've just shared with me is another way of looking at a very similar concept, right? We only have so much creative inspiration, creative energy, creative attention that we can give throughout the day, and that really rings true with Mia. So I appreciate you sharing that. Drew, this has been such a treat. I know I speak for our entire audience of marketing professionals when I say that we just can't wait to be there for your keynote at Agency Summit on August 25th. Now, for everyone else, if you haven't yet RSVP'd, head over to agorapulse.com. I'm going to put that on the screen again right now. agorapulse.com/summit. Grab your ticket. We will see you there. Mr. Davis, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mike. I will see everybody there. Again, see you.